Hello everyone, it's great to have you back on our channel. Last week I recorded and uploaded my first YouTube video, telling you a little bit more about me and what to expect on here. If you've seen that already, you'll have heard me bang on a little bit about R. So I thought what better way to follow up with my first official video than to explain a bit more about what R is, for those of you that still know it as a letter of the alphabet. So let's start by looking at how it's defined on the R website itself. Firstly, we see everyone's favourite word, free. I mean, come on, who out there doesn't love a freebie? In the case of R, it's a bit more than that though, and you'll often hear the words open source instead of free. This simply means that anyone, anywhere, that's me, you, my 4-year-old son, even your pet gerbil, can access, use and develop within R without having to worry about copyrights or licensing. Incidentally, if you do have a pet gerbil, or indeed any pet that can code in R, please let me know because I would love to run a feature on them in one of my future videos. Okay, so we know it's free. Well, what else? R is an evolution of the S language, which was first created at the University of Auckland in 1993. And in fact, you could say it's still very much driven by intelligent Kiwis, with perhaps one of the most well-known personalities in R being Hadley Wickham, a Hamilton-born statistician who's the chief data scientist at RStudio and developer of many of the popular functions within R today. Anyway, back to the question, what is R? Other than, of course, a free piece of kit powered by clever New Zealanders. Let's take the next bit of the definition, software environment. Software is, of course, something we're all familiar with now. We use it pretty much daily, and it's defined as a program or operating information used by a computer. And R is exactly that, a program on many of computers nowadays, in fact millions worldwide. But what is this program used for? Well, there are two other parts of that website definition to explore. Firstly, statistical computing. Statistical relates to the use of statistics, and computing to the use of computers. Putting all this together, we now have a computer program we can use for statistics, a bit like SAS or SPSS for those of you that have used them before. The final part of the definition is graphics. Now, graphics are diagrams to use for calculation and design. Putting all of that together, we now have a computer program for statistics, calculation, and diagrams. Now, I'm sure some of you are sitting there thinking, that sounds a little bit familiar. Indeed, there's a well-known, shall we say, green Microsoft tool that does a lot of that. So if you can do all these things already in SAS, SPSS, or that green Microsoft thing, then why should you use R? Well, to start with, SAS and SPSS cost, and if you have multiple users, those costs can rise rapidly. Neither are open source, and nor indeed is Excel, meaning that users of all three are limited by the pre-packaged functionality. In R, this isn't a problem. Sure, the functionality you require may not be present in R, but because it's open source, you have the freedom to develop it yourself, and that's one of the great beauties of it, as it offers you far more control as a user. But how does that work? Well, in addition to the initial code created all those years ago in New Zealand, what you might sometimes hear referred to as base R, R is made up of a collection of what they call packages. Each package will contain a collection of specialized functions that allow you to work with data in a specific way. For example, dplyr, my 4-year-old's favorite package, there you go, which is one of the most popular packages on R, and it can be used to sort, filter, and summarize data, amongst other things. In fact, you can almost think of it as a pair of pliers, hence the logo there. Now, I know all of the R enthusiasts that are watching are going to be thinking, yes, that's an old dplyr sticker, it's the old hex, the old logo. I don't have a new one. If you'd like to send me one, or 100, or even more than that, do feel free. My son loves these stickers, and in fact, they're all over our house in various locations. Back to packages for a second, though. By using them alongside the base R code, you can easily build all of your analysis from scratch, from reading in your data to organizing it, analyzing it, and finally visualizing it. You build the entire process into what R calls a script, and you can save that script so that you'll always be able to look back and see what you did to the data to get to the output that you've derived. And this brings me neatly on to one of the other benefits I'd like to touch upon briefly, something you'll hear people refer to as reproducible analysis. And this is where R has a huge advantage over some of the other products that I mentioned earlier. Consider the last time you analysed some data in Excel. Let's think of something simple. Maybe you looked at last year's sales and you had to combine 12 separate Excel files, one for each month of the year. And then you summarised that by week and visualised it on a line chart. Now imagine you walk back into the office the next day and you're told the numbers are incorrect. They'd only accounted for the web sales and that the retail figures were missing. You'd have to merge all 12 spreadsheets again, re-summarise, re-visualise, and probably try not to cry or pull out your hair, because I know that's what I'd do. Now instead, let's imagine you've done the work in R. Unlike Excel, in R you'd have written and saved your script. You come in the next morning, but rather than having to start from scratch with the 12 new datasets again, you can just change the location of the files in your script, rerun all of the code, and guess what? It's all waiting for your chart, your analysis, everything's there, in a matter of minutes rather than hours, leaving you with plenty of time to enjoy a nice cup of tea. Probably 10 actually. Seriously though, I'm sure that all of you analysts out there will appreciate how much of a godsend it is to save that time in analysis. No doubt you've probably all had the data wasn't quite right conversation at some point in the past. So where do I sign, I hear you ask? Well, nowhere. R's open source. But joking aside, if you want to get cracking with R, you can download it in minutes from the website. I'd also recommend downloading and installing RStudio at the same time, which looks a bit like this. And I'll take you through that and how to build some sample scripts within R another time. That's probably a good place to leave it for today. If you've got any questions, do get in touch or comment below. And of course, if you want exclusive and more in-depth content, please subscribe on Patreon or get in touch to start building your own bespoke training course. And indeed, if you do need any other assistance with data strategy, analytics, or automation, please get in touch too. Thanks very much for watching and see you all soon.